doing today?
I'm doing good, my man. I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here. Happy to tell my story too.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and joining and talking with me today. I really do appreciate it, man. I'll tell you
Yeah,
what,
dude.
you got a story, man. That's for sure. And
I sure do.
I'll tell you, for one, I think that, going back and looking at my story, I think mine's kind of crazy. And then like your story, golly, man. And then you sent me that little short. I guess it's like an Instagram short that you sent me this
Yeah,
morning.
yeah. It's like I'm like such a noob when it comes to all this technology. And I'm just learning everything, and I'm creating my own channel. So clearly, I'm just learning by fire here. And yeah, I created a quick little like 50-second reel, like Instagram reel, basically showing each picture demonstrates like a turning point in my recovery when it came to the liver transplant. So like
Yeah.
you'd see me at yeah, you see me at the beginning. I'm like crazy sick looking on yellow, and then it slowly shows like the progress I made as like the transplant happened, and then like the complications, and then like a kidney transplant and all that stuff. So it's an interesting little clip art thing of how far I've actually came, which is it's actually pretty cool to watch.
You did a
Yeah.
great job with it, man. If you're like me, you're not very computer savvy at all.
Oh, I'm
So,
not. Yeah, I
yeah,
suck.
figuring that
I'm
stuff
terrible.
out is kind of difficult, but you did a great job, man. If you don't mind, I'm gonna add that a link to that in my description so people can check that out.
Yeah, yeah, sure, go for it.
Sweet, man. Well, I guess let's just go ahead and hop right into it, man. Would you mind just kind of giving us a little brief, like, bio on yourself? Where you're from, where you grew up. I mean, just give me a little bit of who you are. I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, man. So I'm just a normal dude, honestly. I grew up in the Boston area, and I had like very supportive parents, honestly. Like it usually you hear these stories, and it comes a lot of it comes from family problems in the beginning, but I really didn't have that issue. I had a very supportive mom and father, and it was completely normal. I did everything like a normal kid would do. Nothing, out of the ordinary, like got in trouble here and there doing stuff, but nothing like crazy. But yeah, so do you want me to just kind of just want to just get into it? Like, did I start like telling my story kind of
The
thing?
floor is yours. You go ahead and just start telling your story, brother.
All right, man. So yeah, I guess I got into drinking, very young, like around 14, like how like a lot of kids do. And I saw it around my house a lot. Like my father was a pretty big drinker. He got a little worse as he aged, but in the beginning, he still was, my whole family was, honestly, like, my cousins, uncles, things like that. So I just saw alcohol as like the next thing you did when you got into like adulthood, or, teenage to adulthood, like early 20s. So I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna jump into it. So I did quickly with my buddies, and next thing I know, I remember like drinking my first beer, man, and like I just like instantly fell in love with it. I remember that feeling being like so intense. Like I couldn't believe how it just made me feel so different, because I was always masking this like personality that I had, and then that one beer, just went down, and all of a sudden I felt that buzz, and I was like, oh my God, this is so good. And like it's almost like back then, I was almost like clairvoyant in a way, I could like see the future. And then like God, I wish I really could have, seen the future at that time, because
Yeah,
I,
really.
man, I had no idea how bad it was going to get.
Yeah.
I really didn't.
Can I
Yeah.
ask you a question? So the first time that you like had a drink, you called
Mm.
a like pretty serious buzz off of it?
Oh my God. I remember feeling like laughing, feeling so, having like, I was like, this is like a whole new feeling. Like, it's a whole new way that I can experience reality with like no anxiety, no, I wasn't like second guessing my thoughts. I just let them, come out. And like, apparently I was pretty funny and like, pretty witty and stuff. And I was good at like, talking, trash with your buddies, which is like everything back, in the early days of
Same,
friendship. So
same here, man.
it was huge, man. It was like a huge part of like, oh wow, I can be the person that I always wanted to be when I drink. So it was like a huge alluring factor that came into my life, um, from a super young age, man. Just a super young age.
Did you experiment with any drugs or anything, or is it basically just alcohol for you?
Yeah, of course I experimented, but yeah, nothing to the point where, it was all encompassing, all like it was every single aspect. I couldn't live life without it, like alcohol did to me. Like, yeah, I smoked weed and stuff, and I tried some other stuff too. But in my early 20s, the party days, right? But it never was like a problem or anything like that. One, because it was just too expensive. I wasn't I wasn't like I was loaded or anything, and
Yeah.
yeah, it just made me feel awful when you did the other hard drugs and stuff. I just felt like a worthless piece of loot, crap the next day. So the come down was way too bad. But with booze, the come down is bad, right? The hangovers are terrible, but those usually don't come till
Not
if
in
you're
the
like in,
beginning, they're not.
yeah, they're not in the beginning. Oh my God, right when you're young, it's like
Yeah,
you can
that's the
yeah.
trick.
Yeah. You can like run a 5K after drinking like 18 beers the night before.
You can stay up all night long, party all night long, wake up the next morning with no sleep, go to work, work all
Oh,
day, drink the rest of the night, and it's almost
yeah.
like you're invincible.
Yeah, man, because you kind of are, like you
Yeah.
really think you are, but you kind of are because you're so young, you just recuperate like so quickly.
One of the crazy things about this, I don't want to keep cutting you off, but talking about
Oh, please.
that
No, hey man, I talk way too much, so please.
so do I.
I'm a teacher for a living. My kids, that's all they do is tell me like, hey, miss, shut up.
I'm the same way. My,
Like,
my family tells me all the time. They're like, "Will you please shut up and stop talking?"
yeah.
But the one thing that that just kind of like sparked a thought in my head. How we were talking about how we feel like we're invincible, but you found out really quick, and so did I. Because leading up until I got sick, I still thought I was invincible. Even going into my early 40s, and then
Yeah.
when I got sick, I was proven wrong. And did you kind of get that same feeling the first time you initially got sick?
Yeah, I remember I drank way more than like my buddy did that night, and I was like doubling every time he had like a drink, I would have like two just to like kind of one up him. And I remember that first hangover being like, what is this? And I remember just thinking the world's spinning. Why is that happening? Why do I feel like every single thing is making me nauseous? And I remember the irritability part. Like I remember feeling like, why is this? Why is like everything on edge? Like I just want to fight everyone. Like, you know what I mean? It was one of those feelings like I got like aggressive out of nowhere because this hangover was so like painfully annoying. That's how it felt. It's just annoying.
Yeah. Well, go ahead if you don't mind. Just kind of so you had your
Yeah.
first drink at 14, you got a nice
Yeah.
buzz, and then just if you don't mind, just go from there and kind of lead us up into your your teenage years, into your 20s, and into your 30s, and then take us into like when you started noticing you were having problems.
Yeah, man. So yeah, so everything was pretty normal. Like I went to college, in New Hampshire, like a big party school, and it was a huge drinking school, and that was honestly one of the biggest reasons I went. That and because I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. I knew that only like two kids from my high school were going to that school, so I was like, well, it's gonna force me to make new friends, right? And I like that kind of stuff. So I went there. I remember getting to this is like a little funny story I always tell, but I remember I got to college, and it was like the first night of drinking, and it was in like a forced triple. It is like as like freshmen usually are in college, and two of my roommates they got like blacked out drunk on the first night, and we all were drinking the same amount of alcohol, and I was like dead sober. That just showed you like by the time I got to like college, my tolerance was at like a skyrocketedly high level from when it definitely should not have been,
Yeah.
and that just like shows you like how severe my alcohol use must have been. This is like pre 20 years old, 19 years old. Like that's how like much we were drinking as like my core group of buds, and I was drinking just a little more than that because I loved it so much. So it was just that was like my first like sign of that's interesting, but nothing really came of it for many years. It wasn't a problem for like another, I would say, um 20s, I would say 26, 25, 26 is when it really hit got bad. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So I remember
That's
I
about
was
the same
noticing,
age for me too. Was when it's about
yeah,
26, 27 when things really started to skyrocket for me.
yeah, man. So yeah, I hear that a lot too. And I remember my buddies, like we were drinking one night and I got like so hammered, and I don't know why. I didn't know what the reason was. Like I don't even remember drinking something crazy. I thought I was drinking like the same amount like everyone else at the party, and I remember just I guess I like embarrassed like the whole party. Like I like my friend brought like a girl or something over, and I was like hitting on her or something like that. I don't know what I was doing, but I didn't recall any of it. I thought it was like funny when it was at the time,
What
but
age was
then the
this
next
again? What age?
this was like 24, 25.
So you're like blacking out at 24 years old
Oh
already.
yeah.
Yeah,
Black
me
oh
too.
yeah, blacking out. Yeah, I would but yeah, I would black out all the time, all the time. I mean, we all kind of did though. That was like the it was kind of normal,
Yeah,
honestly, but
me, that was me
not
too.
like that, not like how I was doing it. I was doing it like in a way that was like scary, you know? Like I didn't like it's almost like I didn't want to live in my own skin or something. I don't know, or I didn't feel cool enough to be associated with the people I was hanging with, and I was insecure.
Yeah,
And I think that was a huge part. Like if you're like have like a predisposition to like insecurity, I think alcohol is like a huge red flag, you know?
absolutely.
Hmm.
I
So,
was the exact same way. Uncomfortable in my own skin. I didn't feel comfortable with myself, and the alcohol allowed me to be that person I thought that I wanted to be. Sounds like you're the same way.
oh, dude, yeah, couldn't we couldn't be more similar in that
Me-
regard, you know? Yeah. So I remember that my buddy sat me down. It was like the next day, and I remember thinking like, "Hey, that was awesome, right, guys? Like, remember that girl came over and blah blah blah." And they were like, "Yeah, man, that was like so and so's friend. That was like the friend, her, you know, the friend that he was hoping that would like he would connect with that night." And you completely like embarrassed yourself and her and like everyone around. Like, well, what was that all about? And I heard them and kind of understood it, but at the same time, I was like, whatever, it's just a party. You know, that's how like selfish and delusional I was about my alcohol even then.
Yeah,
And and like yeah, it was super sad. So that kept kind of happening for a while. It happened so much that like I would like make a fool out of myself out when we were out in public. I would like fall down stuff like that. I would like do sketchy things. Like I hated how it changed my personality. Like it really did. It would just like make me like into this like weird, um, take person. Like instead of a give person, I was like just taking from others like in so many ways. But I remember like putting like beers on like my friend's tab and then him finding out and like we were best friends. This is my best friend at the time, and he like we never I got in one fight our entire friendship for like 12, 13 years. And all of a sudden, I do this really stupid bonehead, a-hole move. And then he just like, saw me and then like threw me against the bar and like basically just kind of like said, get out of my life. And that's what he did. And it was really hard because these were my core group of friends from high school. And next thing I know, I'm sitting alone on that next Friday night by myself because I'm not invited back there anymore. And that's honestly when it really got bad. So it's like 26, right? I just had this huge fight. I lost all my core group of friends. So I have no one to talk to, no one to socialize with, and who the hell wants that when you're in your mid 20s, right?
yeah.
It's like prison. Like I want to go make all brand new friends on the street. Like that doesn't happen. So I remember yeah, yeah. I had that fight and then I was by myself. And then what happens is when you're by yourself, man, and you're depressed and you're insecure still and you haven't dealt with any of your like emotional behavior, maturity issues yet, you start to like, start looking for answers. And my answer was alcohol, which was like, the wrong answer, right? But it was the answer at the time. So I started hitting it hard, man. I started drinking by myself. Honestly, I started drinking by myself every it start with like I would buy like the 750 milliliter bottles, and then it got bigger and bigger and more and more and more to the point where I was just like just drinking by myself every night, all night long, just literally just trying to go to sleep as fast as I could because at least when I was sleeping, I didn't have to live with myself. That's that's hard to admit and say right now, but that was honestly the root of the issue was I just didn't want to be with myself. I didn't want to hang out with me anymore. If no one else wants to hang out with me, then why the hell should I, right? So whatever I could do to numb that feeling of being like lost, lonely, and insecure. So it was intense. It was an intense period, and it still is intense even now. But we haven't even gotten to the crazy, crazy part. Did I lose you?
What was your drink of choice? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Um, my drink of choice at that time, and so when I was like 26, I was like a huge fan of that show Mad Men about from the 60s with Don Draper. I don't know if you're probably I don't know if you've seen that, but it was a huge show at the time, and he would always like make like, drinking look awesome, and he would always have these big glasses of they call them man old fashions, right? And they just look so good. So I remember buying like the he used to drink this Canadian Club, like it was like a whiskey rye thing, and I liked it because it made me it smelled good and it was super cheap, man. It was like you know what a handle is because you live in the States. So it was one of those was like 19, $18, so whatever. And they would get me drunk for the whole week. So I would start by drinking those. And then it started with one a week. And then it went to like two a week. And then when I hit to like I don't know, like 30, it became like an every 3 day situation bottle. So and it actually got worse than that further down the line, but in the sake of the timeline, I'm telling, we'll just end it there. But yeah, man. So the drinking just got out of control. So then once, and I was like trying to hold on to a job. I was, I've been a teacher for 13 years, so I was teaching at the time, but I was so addicted to alcohol that to teach in public school in Massachusetts, you need to be like super smart. You need to pass this test. That's like really hard, and I just couldn't pass it because I was, honestly, I was just an alcoholic. I was just abusing alcohol all night. So I didn't have like the willpower to see that I needed to like cut the booze, stop it completely, and just study for the test. So I just kept coasting. So the only way I could make a living is if I just found a teaching job that's in private school. And private schools are like they don't need your this one test that you need to pass to get your licensure to teach in mass in public. So I just went to private school, and I just noticed a pattern after like 3 years. I would just kind of have to leave that school, only not because I was getting fired or by any means by that, but like I just wasn't doing enough work to get rehired. So I would jump from school to school, and I should have saw then, man, like holy hell, like this is like you're having to change jobs every 3 years because of this. Like, what's it going to look like down the line, right? I wish I asked myself that, but I didn't know at the time. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so then it just losing jobs, drinking just took over everything. Yeah, it just got worse and worse and worse, man. And then finally, I met my wife, who was the savior. She saved my life. I'm gonna say that right now. She just saved my life. That's just a fact. So she came into my life, and I'm just this broken person still, putting on this like really, brave face. And I started drinking less when I met her, and I started working out more and things like that. So like I looked, the part, but I was still so broken inside, still so addicted, still so ashamed, and disappointed in myself, and all these things that I just wasn't showing her at the time, but she would eventually find out. And she did find out. So the drinking continued. I realized that I smelled like booze on days that I shouldn't have. So I remember like she came over one day, and we were hanging out, and she's like, "Why do you smell like like bourbon, like whiskey?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, did you drink before I came here? And I was like, "No," and that was like the first lie of very many. So I realized that I can't go to work if I smell like that, right? So I gotta find a solution. What was my solution? Vodka. Because why? Vodka just doesn't smell that bad. Like all the heavy drinkers that I'm sure just I used to hide it in bottles, and that was like the easiest way to like manage my severe like secret alcoholism.
You're not
Was
the
just
only
putting it.
one, dude. I was a handle of vodka every day or every other day drinker towards the end of my alcoholism too. And just like you said, water bottles, walking around with it. Nobody knows
Mhm.
what you have. I mean, unless they get close to you or pick up your water bottle or something. Did anybody ever pick any of your water bottles up and like accidentally take a swig out of it or any? Did you ever get caught with that?
Oh God, yeah, yeah. I remember I was at a fantasy football draft with my buddies, like my high school friends, and I was it was like before any of us started drinking, and my buddy, I won't say his name, but he grabbed the bottle that I was like a water bottle that was next to my leg, and he went to like drink it because it was hot out, and he thought it was water, and then he's like, Jesus, dude, man, like what is this? Like straight vodka? You're drinking straight vodka? And like, at the time, like I didn't know what to think. Like, is this cool? But at the, it was like a drinking party that we were at. So like, it was like people thought it was funny, but it definitely was not funny. I mean, if that's not a cry for help, right there,
Absolutely.
I don't know what is, I didn't know like it would happen, but it happened. And I wasn't even self-aware of that, like how messed up it was.
I had something very similar to that happen to me. I left a water bottle, and my daughter picked it up. I think she was probably like 19 or something at the time, or 18 or something at the time. This is right before I got sick, and she came screaming at me, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "I just took a sip out of this bottle. I thought it was water, and it was vodka." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." She was
Unbelievable.
not happy with me, dude. And then she told my wife, and that turned into a huge ordeal. So I've been through that as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That's tragic, man. That's tough. And those are the things, right, that we do
Yeah,
when we're addicted, right? And so
absolutely.
and on that point, like my wife, so she wasn't my wife at the time then, but eventually we got married in 2018. So like a couple of years leading into that, and once after we got married, I was so addicted that I was hiding the bottles and I was hiding the water bottles all over the place. I was like, you know, it was awful, man. It was such like a repetitive cycle of just like nonsense, stupid, dumb behavior, like insulting behavior to her. And she would catch me and then she'd say like, "Why is this? Are you seriously drinking by yourself when I'm not here?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, and then she would just hold up the bottle and smell it, and she's like, "This is vodka. I can just tell." And then we get in a huge argument, and then I would apologize and all the things like you're supposed to say when you get caught doing something like that, but I couldn't stop, so I had to keep drinking, and now I'm like addicted to it. Like a lot of people, a lot of people think like, oh, you can't get addicted to alcohol because it's you can always choose to stop. Like, nah, man, I was way gone past that point. Like I
Absolutely
couldn't
not.
choose,
Yeah, you can
couldn't
get,
choose anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, there was no more choosing, dude. It was like completely my like physiologically, that word saying it stupidly, that I was that much, it was so ingrained in my like my body, how my body had to run, that the withdrawal symptoms were so intense that I wouldn't be able to like walk down steps. I couldn't even like breathe. I felt like, I would wake up just like constantly shaking, doing this thing, like trying to force it down, just like that feeling of just having to force poison down your throat just to feel like normal again, and not even have a buzz. I'm talking about just normal, man. Like I just feel like I wasn't dying. That's how it felt. Like I remember drinking like two straight like Poland Spring bottles of vodka, like at like 9 a.m. crazy, and not feeling buzzed at all. That's how high my tolerance was. So that's what I would do. I would hide the bottles. She found all my spots, so I was like running out of space, and like it was just like a game of like hide and seek, and like the worst game of hide and seek you could ever play with someone that you love with too. You love this person like more than anything. She's trying to help and understand your issues and what's going on. And she I feel so bad. I'm sorry I keep hitting the mic, and it's
Oh,
probably
you're good,
seriously,
man.
seriously annoying to everyone listening. But
I'm sure you see me shaking my head, just everything you're saying, man. I can relate to every single thing you're saying. Hiding the bottles, and I don't know if you were like me or not, but I stupidly would keep hiding my stuff in the same places for some reason, and my wife would go right
mm,
to them. Like there was a place back behind we have a couch upstairs in our living room, and I would slide the bottle down into the couch cushion, and I kept doing it like over and over and over again. My wife would go straight to it and find the bottle every time. I'm like, my mind wasn't even functioning correctly. And just like you said, I drank just to feel okay. You're waking up in the morning and your hands are shaking like this, and you can barely even hold the bottle to get it to your mouth, and vodka's splashing all over the place. And
in the dry
gosh,
heaves, man. Oh, those are
oh
the
my
worst. Like
gosh, yeah.
oh God. Like I would crank the shower as loud as I could, like in hot water, crank it as loud as I could with the window wide open so I could puke out the window, go back into the shower, like almost like scream, like kind of quietly scream like into like my fists, um, and just contemplate my existence. I'm like, how did I remember like just like I would just do that every morning, man. I would just let the water just rinse me and just be like, please, like God help me out of this like hole. I mean, I can't function like this. I'm going I can't keep living on like this. And the only thing that kept making me feel just normal enough to get through was the alcohol while it was slowly killing me. And I guess that's what we'll jump into now, man. So that's what happened. It went on like this for so many years. I did this for 10 years. I was like with her. So I was so lost that I kept drinking and drinking and drinking. And then it got to the point where my wife was like, you look, I gained probably 50 pounds. I'm not kidding. Did I know it was all like they call it ascites. It's water. Your organs aren't just they're not like they're not functioning. So they're just like storing everything up. So your liver is taking such a hit that it's like storing all this like fluid and just bile and nonsense that shouldn't be in there. It's supposed to be flushed out and properly, but because I'm killing my liver every single day, um, that's what happened, man. So right before I remember thinking, I was driving like home from work, and I felt I could. This is how bad my liver was hurting. I could feel my liver like rising above, and I could feel like a sharp pain, like just digging into my seatbelt because my belly was so big and my liver was right here, and it's just oh my god. So I was like, oh no, I think something's wrong. And then like 2 weeks later, um, my skin turns yellow. Um,
Can I ask you a question really
then
quick? I don't mean to cut you
oh
off,
yeah,
but this just popped in my head, and I got to ask you this. This used to
oh please
happen to
go.
me. So I used to get the same pain in my liver, and I had that pain in my liver for years. I could feel it, and if I laid in the
Yep.
bed, I could push down. If I pushed on my left hand side, I could push down underneath my rib cage, but if I pushed on my right, it was hard as a rock. But here's the
Yep.
question I want to ask you, and because I've never talked about this, did you ever feel your liver jump inside of you? Like it would like
I,
spasm?
spasm. I was gonna say like yes, I did. So it was always when I was driving. Always when I was driving, I would always feel like a weird like a kind of like "Oop," like your
Yeah.
hand, is like moving like a someone like grabbed your hand quick.
I've
I
never
remember feeling
spoken
that.
about that before, but that used to happen to me all the time.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, it's no joke, dude. Like your liver literally starts to hurt when you drink to the point of what I did, which was a liver transplant. So I get to the hospital. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. I get to the hospital. My wife's like, "You got to go. Your skin looks like yellow. You look like a Simpsons character." Honestly, that's what she said.
Let
Well,
me
that's what
let me
well,
let me
that's what
stop you.
my students said.
Let me stop you real quick. So
Mhm.
you're riding home from work one day, and your liver's hurting you because of your seatbelt, and
Mhm.
a couple weeks later you start turning yellow. Your eyes start turning yellow. Um,
Yeah.
Leading up to this, like, were you feeling like abnormally sick during this period of time?
Mhm.
Like, was there anything else going on? Were you like throwing up a lot? Was there any like blood in your throw up or anything like that?
So, yeah, so I'm like that was the only thing I never really saw was blood, but it was just straight bile every single morning, just like forcing up, just coughing up bile, like the very stuff that's at the bottom of your belly. Because I couldn't eat. I was so nauseous, so I just
Yeah.
would eat. Even if I ate like an apple, man, I would like have to run, pretend like I was going to the bathroom and just like crank the sink loud enough so like my anyone around me couldn't hear me just yakking that apple up. Awful, just
Yeah.
awful, man. I couldn't even afford getting an apple down. And that would all happen all the time, all the time.
Me
It was
too.
just nonstop, just sickness. So yeah, I get to the hospital. So my wife said, "Go to the hospital. You look awful." Blah blah blah. I get to the hospital. I check myself into the ER, and what the doctor takes a look at me, man, and he's like, "Whoa, brother! Like, what have you been doing, man?" And I was like, "Hey, I think my stomach's messed up because I was going to the bathroom all the time." And that's why like that was my reason. That was like my I'm still in such denial, even though he can tell just by 1 second of looking at me. He's like, yeah, he's like, man, like, how hard are you hitting it? Like, honestly, like level with me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I'm drinking a lot. Yeah. He's like, a lot. You're drinking more than a lot, my friend. And so they hooked me up. They did all these tests on me. They found out my bilirubin level was like, so a healthy person's the range is like 0.8 to like 2. Mine was at like a 16. It was like
Wow.
way, way, way up. And so they hooked me up, they detoxed me. I'm there for like a few weeks. And then and this is like during my like I'm supposed to be at work, man. I'm supposed to be teaching. And here I am like in the hospital. Like I just got this job and I'm already like on sick leave, you know. So right away they were probably like, this guy's no good. But I got sick and I just told them it was something else, right? You don't have to disclose anything. So that happened. The doctor told me, all right, man, like this is the deal. Like you either stay sober and change the way you're eating and your habits and stuff like that, or you're gonna be right back here. He's like, I'm not joking. I see this all the time. This is what I do for a living. So take me serious. And he looked me like dead in the eye and he said, man, like if you don't stop this right now, like it's going to not end well for you. And I'm not, and I don't mean like that, like metaphorically. He's like, it's you like he'll die. So he didn't say die. I kind of wish he did say die
Yeah.
because I probably would have listened a little more. I probably would have been like, okay, that's it. But anyways, what he did say, it did resonate because I did go 125 days sober after that, right?
Did they do a
So there I
fibrosis
am.
scan on you or anything at this point? Did they tell you you had cirrhosis or any of that kind of
Oh yeah.
stuff?
Yep. Yep. So it
Okay.
was 2000. This is 2020 when they did that. So 2020, I actually like downloaded all my medical records and I kind of went through it because I'm gonna release all my my own story, my own podcast and stuff. But this is gonna be the first episode of mine as well. So but yeah, I went through my medical files and I went to the dates of like when I was admitted and all the labs and stuff they did and yeah, so I went in and they did that. Yeah. And that, oh, so yeah, so wait, I'm sorry, what was the thing that you
I,
were
I was I
referencing?
was wondering if like the first time that you went, like this initial time, did they tell you you had cirrhosis? Did they do a fibrosis scan on you and say you have a cirrhotic liver? Did you
Yep.
know that
Yeah.
at that point?
I knew my liver was like totally messed up. I knew that from like probably like 4 or 5 years before that. But this was just like now there's now there's no running away from it because it's proof, and my wife can see the medical reports. So I was like, okay, I guess I have cirrhosis. So what? Like, does that kill you? I mean, I'll just I'm only 30, whatever, 33 at the time. So I'm like, is that gonna kill me? And then I just figured whatever. I'll go sober, and I did. I really did. I went sober for 125 days, and I had that sober calculator. I'm looking at my thing, and I'm like, oh man, it said, congratulations, you've been sober, Will, for 125 days, and like balloons went up and stuff, and I was like, oh my god, the voice of an alcoholic, right? This is what this is like what we think. I was like, oh dude, like 125 days, man, I am cured. Let's go. Um, so I tried. So after the 125 days, I remember I was listening to this podcast at the time, and they were promoting this vodka, and it was it sounded really good. It didn't have that high of a concentration. I think it was like 30%. It's called a Pink Whitney, if anyone's familiar with that. It's pretty popular now. And I remember, oh, it was the worst day, man. It was the worst day. It was a day that I'll never ever forget. A day I'll go to my deathbed, like just thinking
Yeah.
about like why did you do that? And so I remember going walking into the store, like I felt like so sketchy. I remember thinking like I felt like I was like 16, like buying like with a like booze for with a fake ID again because I knew it wasn't supposed to be in there. Like every like intention was saying, dude, go, leave. You shouldn't be here. But I didn't have the strong enough willpower. I didn't have like that network. I didn't have like the community I needed to like help me, because I was trying to like white knuckle it. I was trying to like do it myself, man. And that's like the stupidest thing you can do when you're trying to get sober. You
Yeah.
got to have people like on your side. You got to have like a good foundation of like support because if you don't, you're just doomed, man. You really are. So be intentional about getting that support, like right
Absolutely.
away when the first time you get sober because I did not have that, and that's what happened. So I fell right back into it. I remember this is a story I told on another podcast, but I took the bottle and it was like still cold, which was weird because I bought it like a week earlier and it was like sitting in the corner of the room, like almost like an evil goblin. Like, come on, man, drink me, drink me, drink me. So I get it, pick it up. Right when it hit my lips, dude, I was like, oh, this is going to be. I just knew I could see the future. I just like felt it. I could like feel myself like 5 years later after oh no, actually it was only 2 years later, but 2 years later, that was it. That was it. So right when it hit my lips, I was right back to the races, like just what I was doing before I did those 125, as if like that those days didn't matter and they weren't hard or something. Like they were hard, man. And I just like forgot all that just for that one like simple release of what alcohol does to you, what like physically what it does to you, just like mellows you out to the point where you just feel like okay again. So that's what happened, man. Next thing I know, my wife, I'm at a different teaching job now, and my wife, I was asked to leave. I asked myself, actually, I asked to leave because I wasn't feeling well, and that was it. That was because my liver completely shut down now, and I was completely yellow, and I looked ridiculous. So
Let
I
me
went
let
back.
me let me stop you real quick, Will. That we are almost at the point where we're about to run out
Oh
of
yeah,
time
yeah.
for this, and I think this is the
Mm-hmm,
perfect segue for us to go ahead and stop this one and start over the next section. So
mm-hmm,
this will be the first part, and we've talked about your drinking all the way up until you got 125 days of sobriety, and then after 125 days you get the balloons and all the stuff on your sober app. You go back and you go buy that Pink Whitney vodka, and
Yep.
you go back to full on drinking after this. And then 2 years later is when all hell breaks loose, basically, correct?
Yep. Everything, all the, the train falls off the track, man.
All right, well, let's stop it here and leave people with a little cliffhanger so that they'll
Yeah.
join in for the second
Tune
part
in
to
to
get to
find
hear
out.
the nitty-gritty of everything that happened to you. Although it's not, anything, that's fun or anything like that, but we're going to get into like, the bad part of it. Um,
Yeah, no, it's important. It's important to let
absolutely.
people know. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on for this first section. I really do appreciate it. And for everybody out there, there's going to be a couple more parts. I'm not sure how many, but we'll find out as we go. But I'm really interested to hear the rest of the story, and I know that everybody else is going to be. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. And the next section will be up the next day. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop this here. Thank you so much for watching.